Hi, everybody. Joe Cioffi here. Weather in 5 days in 5 minutes. Joe and Joe Weather Show tonight at 7:35 p.m. Where we'll be talking about severe weather across the south, rain in the northeast, snow up in Maine, more rain in the west. That's not exactly breaking news. And Weather in 5 brought to you by Omni True Value Hardware at 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon, New York, and Southwest Suffolk County on Long Island. And they are Long Island's largest rock salt source, serving the entire New York, New Jersey, Connecticut tri-state area. They've got plenty of snow and ice melt products, along with snow blowers, shovels, spreaders, and also things like batteries and generators. Winter storms can do a lot of things. 631-756-1125 is the phone number. The best prices in town. OmniTrueValue.com is the website. So the focus of attention today, as we take a look at the satellite loop at 1 o'clock Eastern Time, is a rather busy, severe weather outbreak that is occurring across Tennessee, Alabama, southern Mississippi, and now spreading into Georgia. And there have been numerous severe thunderstorm warnings and a number of tornado warnings that have been issued so far today. And this line is looking pretty healthy as it moves to the east, and it probably will hold together at least through sunset as it continues into Georgia and eventually on up into western South Carolina. This is where the Storm Prediction Center has an enhanced risk of severe weather for much of east central Alabama and the northern half of Georgia. Big area of slight risk that pushes up into Kentucky and western North Carolina. Gets down as far south as the Florida Panhandle. The marginal risk pushing up into southwestern Virginia. And by the way, at least down the central and southern Appalachians, you're probably going to see some snow come late Thursday night and much of the day Friday into Friday night. So you're going from severe weather to the potential for accumulating snow. Taking a wider view here on the U.S. loop, also want to point out we've got more action coming into the western part of the United States, and we've got a warm front that is now pushed northward into southern New York and through southern New England, and that has some rain and some snow ahead of it. And now, of course, we're going to be dealing with this shower and thunderstorm activity that is pushing to the east. If we go a little bit further north on the radar, you can see the precipitation from the warm front actually produced some snow, whitened up the ground in spots and a little bit more in parts of upstate New York, and now making its way through New England, where central and northern Maine will probably do fairly well with this. And we've got some heavy downpours moving into western Pennsylvania, western Ohio, and also down into southern Ohio and northern Kentucky and back into Indiana. In California, most of the rain today is moving into the northwestern part of the state. Central and south are dry, at least for now. And we've got some heavy rains that are coming in to the Pacific Northwest. The rainfall forecast for the next 7 days is much of this is front-end loaded in the east. There is another weather system that's coming for Tuesday into Wednesday that looks less impressive. But in terms of total rainfall for the next 7 days, much of the eastern United States is going to get anywhere from a half an inch to maybe some areas like in the Ohio and Tennessee Valley where we're talking an inch and a half to as much as 2 inches. And also up in northeastern New York and in Maine where we could see anywhere from an inch and a half plus, and especially in northern Maine, the majority of that is going to be snow. The West continues to see several to many inches over the next 7 days up and down the coast from southernmost California all the way up to the Pacific Northwest, northwestern Washington, and then into southwestern Canada, Vancouver Island, and so on. The look ahead as far as snow is concerned over the next 72 hours, we're seeing a very high probability of 50% or higher in upstate New York, northern Vermont, a good chunk of central and northern New Hampshire, and most of interior Maine, especially central and northern Maine, where we're looking at a rather high probability of at least 4. And I'm just going to switch over to the probability of at least 8. And it's also a high probability in northern Maine that we could see 8-inch plus snow amounts. Widening out, you see in the west, high probability in the Sierra Nevadas, over the next 3 days. And also, again, in the central Appalachians, I'm just going to bring it back down to at least 2. And you have 50% or higher probabilities making it all the way down through western North Carolina, almost to the Georgia border. I wanted to push a little bit further south because I'll probably see some snow here in northeast Georgia late tonight and through Friday and into Friday night. Not so lucky for most areas in the Northeast. So, for the snow lovers, anyway. So, here's what's happening. We've got this low in Kentucky that's moving into western Pennsylvania. The models have been kind of been handling, not handling this very well. The front is going to be somewhere through central PA and then down the East Coast at about 1 a.m. Friday. So we're going to get some rain, and don't be surprised if there's a rumble or two of thunder. Areas, I think, north of Philadelphia and north of New York City and Long Island will probably wind up with an inch plus, while areas to the south will probably wind up with less, except in the odd thunderstorm that pops up. And of course, we've got the severe weather that's moving through late this afternoon and this evening across eastern Alabama, Georgia, and western South Carolina. So this front passes offshore tomorrow morning. The rains will be coming to an end around daybreak from west to east. It will turn colder behind it. The coldest air actually goes into the south, into the deep south. And there's going to be a low that's going to develop on the front offshore. Some models are actually trying to throw back some snow into eastern Long Island and southeastern New England over the weekend as that low develops, and you see it there on Sunday. But for the vast majority of folks, we're going to see improving weather conditions Saturday and Sunday, a gusty wind, sunshine, temperatures by day probably not much out of the 30s both Saturday and Sunday, with the nighttime lows down in the 20s. And then that low eventually does pull away. The next system is moving east. The low is going to be offshore, so that's likely to weaken this system for Monday and Tuesday as it moves across the Great Lakes and into the Northeast. You can see the area of rain actually falls apart while the storm in the ocean spins back snow and ice into Maine come Monday and into Tuesday. So it's just kind of a weird setup here. Once the Tuesday system goes by, we're just going to dry out again. And we've got a storm late next week in the plains that looks to run up well to our west. So the pattern of no snow continues through at least next week. Weather in 5 is brought to you by Omni True Value Hardware at 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon, New York. 631-756-1125 is the phone number. And the website is omnitruevalue.com. Going to leave you with a look here of the western United States and the Pacific Ocean on this full disk view, and you can see the storm that's offshore for California and Oregon, and there's actually even a squall line of thunderstorms out there that's swinging east. There's a break, and there's more Pacific moisture. The subtropical jet comes down from the Philippines, goes northeastward across the entire, halfway across the Pacific into the next storm system that'll be behind the one that is approaching now. We'll see you tonight. We'll talk about this in the long range on the Joe and Joe Weather Show at 7:35 p.m. Eastern.